Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today, we're going to really dig into the U.S. housing market
Yeah.
as we're kind of early into 2025 here. And we've got reports from the National Association of Realtors,
Of course.
NAR, Zillow, Trading Economics. We even pulled in the FHFA House Price Index. That's the one that tracks changes based on mortgages that are sold to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Right.
And then, of course, you can't forget the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller Index. We're trying to give you the insights without getting lost in all the reports and all the data.
Exactly. We're gonna give you a good picture of where the market is right now, what's happening with it, where it might go for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and specifically for you, what does this all mean for you? So let's jump right in. Let's look at the current picture, the snapshot.
Yeah.
Median home sale prices, early 2025. It does depend a little bit on who you're looking at, right? NAR is saying it's around $397,000.
Right.
But then Zillow is a little lower. Trading Economics is higher. I guess it's just different ways of calculating it.
Right. Yeah, they have different methodologies they use.
Yeah, but the point is prices are still high.
Absolutely.
What's interesting, though, is that even though prices are so high, existing home sales, they actually went up in February. NAR says it was like 4.2%.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is, with that, we're also seeing more homes become available.
Okay.
So NAR reported a 3.5-month supply for both January and February, with total listings up a huge 17% compared to last year. So that's a lot more choices for buyers out there.
Yeah.
But, you got to keep in mind that 3.5-month supply, it's still going to favor sellers in a lot of places.
Right. And it wasn't that long ago, during the pandemic, 2020 to 2022, when prices were, they were exploding.
They were going crazy.
It was a crazy time. And the median price peaked at over $413,000 in June of 2022.
Yeah.
So things have calmed down a little bit since then, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. That really intense pressure, it's definitely eased up. You can see that in the FHFA index.
Yeah.
It's showing like a 4.5% increase year over year by October 2024.
Yeah.
And the Case-Shiller index, backs that up too. It was showing about a 3.9% gain annually by the end of last year. To put it in perspective for everybody, the median existing home price, it went up by almost $100,000 from January 2021 to February 2025.
Wow.
According to NAR.
Yes.
So that's a pretty big jump in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, it is. It is. And are we seeing this everywhere across the board, or is it different in different parts of the country?
Oh, it's absolutely different depending on where you are.
Okay.
Like the Northeast, they had the biggest jump year over year, over 10% in February 2025. The Midwest, that saw good growth too. But the West and the South, they had smaller increases.
Interesting.
But here's something you might not expect. For the 7th year in a row, 2024, home values actually grew faster in rural areas than in the cities and the suburbs.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it is.
So what is driving all of this? Interest rates are still pretty high. They're hovering around 7%.
Yeah.
That's got to be a big factor when it comes to, can people afford to buy a house or not?
It absolutely is. When mortgage rates go up, it directly affects how much house you can afford. And then you've got inflation too. That was at 3% in January 2025. And that affects how much money you have to spend.
Right.
It affects the cost of building new homes.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we were talking about how there are more homes for sale.
Yeah.
But it's still less than what we normally see historically.
Okay.
And there's this thing called the lock-in effect. People who got those super low mortgage rates a couple of years ago, they don't want to sell.
Right.
Because if they sell, they got to get a new mortgage with a higher rate.
Right.
So they're just staying put.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are the experts saying about the rest of 2025? What are they predicting?
Well, most of them are saying that prices are going to keep growing, but slowly.
Okay.
Like CoreLogic is predicting around 2%.
Yeah.
JP Morgan's thinking maybe 3% or less. And Zillow's saying maybe 0.9%. So nobody's really expecting prices to crash or anything.
Okay.
And they're saying that we're probably going to have a shortage of homes for sale for a while.
So still a seller's market.
Yeah, most likely. But new construction, that's going to be really important for getting more homes available.
Right. But if prices are still high and interest rates are still high, then it's still a problem for a lot of people to afford a house, right?
It is. The U.S. Fixed Housing Affordability Index, it's actually gone down, which means it's harder for people to afford homes than it was last year. And the IMF, they have data that shows that affordability has gone down a lot since 2021.
Wow.
So, it really makes you wonder who can actually afford to buy a house right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what are some of the things that could happen that might change all of this? What are some of the risks?
Well, one thing is if prices keep going up faster than we can build new houses,
Right.
then it's just going to get even harder to afford a house. And then we've got a new president now, so his policies could change things too. And then there's always stuff happening in the world.
Right.
Like wars and stuff.
Yeah, the economy, all that.
Yeah, and that can all affect the housing market. And then you've got climate change, and that's a big one. It can affect property values and insurance costs.
Yeah.
And they're saying we could lose trillions of dollars over the next few decades because of that.
Wow.
And then there's the possibility that interest rates just stay high,
Right.
and that would keep making it hard to afford a house.
So it sounds like there's a lot going on. So basically, to wrap it all up for everyone listening, the housing market, it's growing more slowly now than it was during the pandemic.
Right.
There are more homes for sale, which is good, but it's still tough to afford a house because prices and interest rates are still high.
Right.
And it's different in different parts of the country.
It is. It's really interesting to see how all these different things kind of play off each other.
Yeah. So here's something to think about. Since climate change is becoming such a big deal, and it can really affect how much houses are worth and how much insurance costs, how do you think that's going to affect people who are thinking about buying a house in the future? Will they be worried about those risks? And what can the government do to help people deal with all these changes in the housing market? It's definitely a lot to think about. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.